So I finished editing the import from Notion to Obsidian video. So today I'm going to walk you through my editing process. So that's everything from right after I record in OBS to hitting publish on YouTube. Plus share the 5 features that help me speed up my workflow. So quick story, I've been editing my videos for 5 years now. I used what used to be called Screencast-O-Matic. Now it's called ScreenPal for years. And then I started using CapCut last year, but then switched to DaVinci Resolve earlier this year. I was doing too much trying to learn everything, but then I realized I can do everything with just the 2 pages, and that's the edit and deliver page. So the only thing I miss from CapCut is the text-based editing. That's in the paid version of DaVinci Resolve, but there's a new feature that I'm using, I'll show you later, that helps me edit faster. So I'm okay with not having that feature for now. So right after I'm done recording in OBS, the video is downloaded to the raw videos folder. And then I take the last recorded video and then move it into the video project. So this is project folder. I move the raw video to the video folder, and that gets added to A-roll. And then I have B-roll, which I usually put in this folder, but I have B-roll here. The audio is for any sound effects or music, but that's already in the power bins in DaVinci Resolve. The graphics are any GIFs, screenshots, or images that I add to the video. The text is where I upload the subtitles and the script. And then for export, this is the finalized video plus the thumbnails. So once that's all set up with the project folder, I open up DaVinci Resolve and then right click on the template folder and then open it in read-only mode. So inside the template is all the project settings with the 2 timelines. So I have the main timeline, which is where I drag and drop the video to start the rough cuts. I have the add-ons timeline, and this has all the reusable assets that I just drag and drop to the main timeline when I use the stacked timelines, and I'll show you that later on. So I have the power bins all set up with the background images, B-roll, text, any animation, and then music. So this is all the instrumentals I use. I get from Creator Mix or Pixabay. And then I have a few end screens. So this is the project template. So it's all set up. Once I'm ready to start editing the video, I go to File and Save Project As to get started. You can watch my perfect DaVinci Resolve setup video here if you haven't already to learn how to set up your workspace. So once the project template is ready, I drag and drop the folder, the video project folder into the bin. So this is the raw video from OBS. So it's 93 minutes long. And then in the next phase, I cut it down to 45 minutes, then to 13 minutes as the final video. So minus the procrastination, it usually takes me about less than 3 hours for me to edit a full video. So the first thing I do before I start editing is select the clip and then right click and then normalize audio levels. And this is set to YouTube. So once I click normalize, it'll raise the volume up for my voice. And once that's done, I'm ready to start with the rough cuts. So I press F6, which is the shortcut for ripple delete silence. For the threshold is -35 decibels. And the threshold is the higher the threshold, the more DaVinci Resolve cuts. So anything below -35 is cut. For prehead and post-tail, this is the bit of silence it keeps before I start talking and after I stop talking. So for the prehead, this is before I start talking. So it leaves some space between here. I set this for 30 frames to leave some breathing room. And then for post-tail, this is after I stop talking. From the minimum to stripped, I set this up for 30 also. And this is how long the pause has to be before it's cut. And after doing the testing, this was the best setting for me where it doesn't sound too choppy now. So once I click remove, it went from 1 hour and 33 minutes to 43 minutes after using the ripple delete silences. So the next thing now is to clean up and manually go through the cuts that ripple delete made. And this is also where I remove any repeats or ums or any extra silent parts that I missed. So the common keyboard shortcuts I use or W to split the clip, Q to trim left, and E to trim right. D to ripple delete, which moves everything from the right to the left, and S to just delete the clip, which leaves a gap. And if there's a missing section that was removed from ripple delete, I use the Alt-Y keys to select everything on the right to move all the clips. And here's where I can extend the clip on the left side or the right side. So that's the Q, W, E, and then the S and D to delete. And then for the second feature, I use the Control M keys while going through the rough cuts to add chapters, text overlays, graphics, and timestamps. So for example, if I need to add a graphic or a GIF, I'll just add image, screenshot, and then done. And I continue doing that throughout the whole. So in the next phase, I'll be able to drag and drop any assets or effects in the right spots. And you can watch this video here to learn about the top keyboard shortcuts to use in DaVinci Resolve. Here's the finished version of all the markers I used. So for example, I have the intro or the what to expect here. This here is a timestamp. So how to export from Notion. Before I exported the video, I remove all the markers except for the timestamps. Here's an example where I will put a marker. I will put it here, so I know to put this text here or to put this graphic here. So I would drag and drop from the bin to the timeline. The third feature is the dual screen workspace. So I go to workspace, dual screen, and then turn it on. But I have the keyboard shortcut Control F8. So I switch to this layout for faster editing. So I have on the left or on the top here, this is what I'll see on my laptop on the left side. So I have my preview window, my effects, and the bins below. I can also resize the window for a wider view. And then on my monitor on the right, I have the full timeline plus the inspector on the top right. So in the last phase, I go through the rough cuts in normal speed. Now I use the shortcut L to double the speed for review. And this is where I use the fourth feature, the stack timelines. So with this main timeline available, I click the plus sign to add another timeline. And that's the add-ons timeline. Then I go to the right to click the plus sign. And now the add-ons timeline is on top. And then for the bottom timeline, I choose the main timeline. And this is where I start using the markers as a guide and then go through to drag and drop the effects and assets from the add-ons timeline to the main timeline. So the main timeline will be the final export. And then using the markers as a guide, I drag and drop any text like pro tips or steps, any graphics like arrows, or the end screen for the last 20 seconds of the video. So for example, for steps, I drag and drop the steps text on the main timeline and then open up inspector to rename the text. You can also rename the text effect itself by going to inspector and then file to rename it so you know which text effect you're using. So for example, I named this steps, so I know where to add this effect for each step. Same thing with tips, so I know where to add each pro tip. So after I'm done moving things from the add-ons timeline to the main timeline, I can go back to single and start adding things like transitions, for example, cross dissolve, or any push or slide motions to move on to the next clip. If I need to add anything extra like music or animation, I go to the power bins to add music, so I can drag and drop to the last track or add any animation like the arrows, circles, or the subscribe button. There's also the sound library, and you can download this from the Blackmagic website. And once you install this, you'll be able to choose from any sound effects. So once I'm done with the rough cuts, the cleanup, and the polish, the last thing I do is the last feature, which is the compound clips. I usually do this earlier in the process, but I use the compound clips to combine a bunch of clips into one. So if I select a few clips, I have the keyboard shortcut F2 to create a compound clip. And here's where I rename it. And for this example, this is a compound clip for the intro. It's a good idea to use compound clips, especially after using the ripple delete, where you can have over 200 clips. So if your timeline starts lagging, you can combine the clips together to speed things up. Also, for the intro, I use a time-lapse video from certain parts of the video as a preview to show the viewers what's coming up. So one more thing before I go to the deliver page to export, I do a final review by clicking the shortcut Control F to go through the video one last time, to catch any typos or whatever else I missed. I also use the L key to double the speed so I don't have to sit through it again. So after the rough cut, clean up, and polish, now my video is ready to export. Right before I export the video, I right click on the timeline, go to timelines, export, then timeline marker CDL, and I use that file for the chapter generator, and I can use that to get the timestamps so I can paste it in the YouTube description. So I go to the deliver page and then select the YouTube preset, add the file name, and then choose a location, which is the export folder. Then I add to render queue at the bottom, and then render all to start the process. It would usually say 1 to 2 hours to complete, but the actual time it takes is usually about the same length of the video. So this was a 13-minute video, but it was done in less than 12 minutes. But during that time while it's processing, I'm adding any screenshots I grabbed from the timeline to add it to the thumbnail in Canva. And then once that's done, I go to YouTube to upload the video. So the EDL file I downloaded earlier, I paste it in here to grab the YouTube chapters and then paste it in here, plus add any extra info from the script from Obsidian, including the description, the related playlist, and anything I mentioned in the video. I also add the keywords and tags at the bottom, and then upload the thumbnail, choose the playlist, go through all the settings, and then add the end screen and the cards. After the video is clear, I go to the languages tab to edit the subtitles. In the OBS video, I set up a profile to grab the transcript from the video, but now I do it from YouTube by going to the languages and then edit subtitles. So I can edit everything from here, click publish, and then I'm all set. Before I exit out of YouTube, I grab the video link to add it to the script in Obsidian, plus the final thumbnail. So that's the basics for tutorial videos. I'll be learning color correcting and color grading in the future, and then adding other effects once I get comfortable. But for now, if you want to learn more about DaVinci Resolve, here's a playlist to get you started. And anything I learn along the way will be added to this playlist.